Hey everybody, Dave Neal here, stand-up comedian and host of Bachelor Recap, a guy's review. As you can see from the title of this video, this morning we'll be talking about the Chris Harrison interview and Rachel Lindsay's response to the petition to have him fired, whether or not she thinks Bachelor franchise is racist, and a very interesting clip. So I'm going to play the old meat and potatoes of this interview, and if you do want to watch the full thing or listen to it on any podcast apps, go ahead. I'll put a link in the description. I highly suggest listening or watching this interview. I'll play a few clips of this, and then I'll share some more info after about some things that Chris Harrison said, why it was wrong for some people that still kind of don't get it, okay? Because I've done a lot of my own sort of thinking about this. A lot of people thought, well, the interview came off, one of those, agree to disagree type of things. I was there with you guys. I totally understand that thought process, but let's hear somebody else's point of view on the subject matter, specifically Rachel Lindsay, who was there. And as some mentioned, this interview took place on Extra TV. She isn't necessarily obliged to speak her full opinion while working for her employer. So this is a conversation that I believe is way closer to the authentic level of how she feels about how it all went down. So I'll play a few clips of this and then we'll talk about it. Here's the first setup here with Rachel Lindsay and Van Lathan.
When I brought Chris Harrison on to Extra, he was going to talk about last night's episode. Okay, brought him in on a Tuesday. He was going to talk about what happened on Monday. We did do that. But then I asked a question, seeing something he said made me poke a little harder. So I phrased the question, what are your thoughts about the allegations against Rachel, the contestant on the show, the one we just talked about? And then he went off. And I want you guys to listen to some of the things he said. So I got a lot of feedback on this. And I just want to say I really appreciate for those who reached out to me, who supported me, who really had a problem with what was said. Then there were some people who said, why didn't I press harder? So I do want to address this. People of color are not given the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say that again. People of color are not given the benefit of the doubt. And it is a struggle being a Black woman on television, because I have seen it happen to me the other way. For me to be even, I have to stay even, kill. I have to stay calm. I cannot react. I cannot show emotion. I cannot show my slip, as you would say in the South. And the reason is because once I do that, that is all people will see. I will be angry. I will be aggressive. You will not hear what I'm saying. You will not hear what the other person, Chris Harrison in this instance, was saying. You will only see the reaction. And when I saw how this interview was going, I said, I'm just going to sit back and I'm just going to let this man talk. I'm going to hold it together. I'm going to poke just a little bit. But it was as if Chris Harrison woke up and said, you know what? I'm just going to be myself today. There was no PR on the call. There was nobody to stop him, nobody to tell us to stop, nobody to tell us to cut some things out. So we played the interview in its entirety on YouTube. Couldn't even play it on the screen. So for all those people who might have something to say about the way that I was reacting, I had to stay calm because I needed people to see and hear what was happening in that message or that interview. And I needed people to take that, listen to the things he said. He said things, and I think the thing that really bothered me the most, if I wanted to react so badly, and if you pay attention to that video, I'm moving my hands together, my foot is moving because I'm boiling inside. And the things that were boiling to me the most were the compassion and the grace and the space that Chris Harrison wanted to give to Rachel, but couldn't give it to this Rachel in the interview.
Wow.
Couldn't give it to the people that were offended by the things that she did. Where was the compassion for them? Couldn't give it to them. The other thing that really got to me was when he said, and I have this written down, the quote, who are you? Who is Rachel Lindsay? Who is Chris Harrison? Who are we? I mean, who the hell are you? Basically saying, who are we to tell her when that she should apologize? Who are we to tell her that we're offended? Do you understand how problematic that is? What I wanted to shout in that conversation is, you're right, Chris Harrison, who are you? Who are you to say something, because you aren't the person who's been offended by the very actions that she is affiliated with, by the things that she's done? Who is Rachel Lindsay? Rachel Lindsay is a Black woman, the very person who is affected by this Rachel Kirkconnell. So I have every right to speak out and say I'm offended. I have every right to say this is what she should do. And I have every right to demand the apology. And to add on top of that, he threw in Hannah Brown. Now, we all know how I feel about that situation. Not once, but twice.
Ooh,
said that we didn't give Hannah Brown the space. We didn't give her the grace that she needed. Y'all remember Hannah Brown said the N-word, right? Hannah Brown said the N-word. And then disappeared for 2 weeks before she formed together a written statement that disappeared on her story after 24 hours. But I'm supposed to have grace for that when I'm the one who's offended. And I don't even need to get into that because we've already talked about the weight of that word. So my biggest thing with Chris Harrison is he's apologized since then. And I definitely want to say that he did reach out to me. And we had a conversation. A short conversation, but we had a conversation, and he apologized, and I appreciate that. And then he did the statement. But I'm having a really, really hard time reasoning or like really taking in and accepting this apology. And I'll tell you why. When I finished that interview with Chris Harrison, he had no problems with it. He was fine. He texted me after. He appreciated the conversation. He thought that he was like, yeah, I'll probably get a little flack, but thought it was great that we could disagree, but do it in a civil way. It wasn't until the backlash came the next day. It wasn't until people start talking, people start demanding and calling for different things that he then apologized to me and then apologized publicly. So you got to see, for me, I'm trying to reason, well, which one is it? Because to me, Tuesday was your truth and Wednesday is after the fact. Wednesday was a response to the backlash. During that whole conversation, he had the audacity to question me. During that conversation, he talked over me and at me. During that conversation, his privilege was on display. He never gave me room to talk, and he never gave me room to share my perspective. He wasn't trying to hear it. He was just trying to be heard. And that's because I felt like he had an agenda that he was trying to push. He was really trying to push that forward. He expressed everything that he said with passion and conviction. So for me, Tuesday is what it was. And I'm not saying that he can't be apologetic. I'm not saying that he can't learn and be better from it, like he said in his statement. But you'll have to give me some space.
Yeah.
And you'll have to give me some compassion and some grace to take the time to really reason and accept that, because that was a lot.
How about that, folks? You know, this is what I love about Rachel Lindsay here is that she's got that lawyer mindset that's going to take your words and she's going to turn them around and show you the hypocrisy there, and in such a beautiful way. Really, really well said. And you can tell she's thought a lot about this before she got into it. I just played for you guys about 9 minutes of this clip. It's an hour and 20-minute long conversation. I will play 2 more clips from it that are very fascinating to hear Van's point of view as a guy, where he can empathize with always being told one message growing up as a male, and then learning to understand others. What's really important that we learn to do is to respect other people's emotions. You might think, and I'm with you guys sometimes too, where you think the pendulum goes too far, where you think it swung too far in a direction, but you have to understand everything has an equal and opposite reaction. So while it might not feel like it's a big emotional thing to you, the way the interview might have gone, if somebody else is reacting in a way that it hurts them, it's like in a relationship, folks, right? You might have said something, you might have been watching, the Patriots game all day long, and then next thing you know, your wife is doing the dishes extra loud. You know when they do the dishes extra loud? You just hear things clanking and you go, I think I messed up. I think I made a mistake. And then you have to respect that, I wasted the whole day. I didn't communicate to you that I needed this time to watch. Whatever, you have to realize that your actions affect other people. You know what I mean? So it's important that even if you think, this is a little overblown, that's not for you to decide. Everyone's emotions are valid. I think that's good to know moving forward. Very telling that Rachel Lindsay said there was no PR on the call. She was like, oh, there was nobody to stop this conversation. We didn't clip it up. We let you guys make the decision. It's unedited. I thought it actually was edited. So for her to say it was, the way they jump these camera angles and, the audio is all different from the different sources because it's a web thing, sounded edited to me, but I believe her that she said it wasn't. And she said, where was the compassion for Rachel Lindsay? Very interesting. Very interesting, because all too often we look at it and go, geez, like Rachel Kirkconnell's just getting destroyed here. But like, what's the opposite side? What's the look in the other direction? How do people feel about what this represented, seeing this play out, this storyline play out? Very, very interesting stuff. I'm going to jump to what Van said at 23:30. Very fascinating words from Van, from his male perspective here. So let's hear what Van has to say.
I want white people to know. See, I know that it's hard to be wrong when you've been told you're right for your entire life. Man, I know that because I'm a man. That's how I know. I know that because I'm a man. I've looked at women when we've had all of these discussions over the past couple of years, and I've been like, y'all want all of this too? I know it. I felt it. It doesn't feel right. My dad told me when I was a little boy, he was like, you go out there, you're going to build a kingdom. Some woman's going to come along. She's going to validate you. She's going to make everything. She's the missing piece to what she's not her own person, her own thing. She adds to your greatness. And then you'll have kids that'll add to your greatness. And then one of your kids will have a penis. And then you'll talk to him, and then you'll give your greatness to him. Fuck your daughter. The greatness gets passed from you to you to you, and then you give it to another little guy, and then he'll go do the same thing. And then we'll keep repressing women over and over and over again. It'll be great. And then one day women went, no. And I was like, huh? And they were like, no.
Right.
Everybody, I get it. I understand it. It doesn't feel great. But think of how the other side feels.
Exactly. That's the thing.
Right. So when I'm watching him talk to you, I'm thinking to myself, yo, this is beautiful. This is really funny. Like, fam in a way, that was him finally getting a chance to stand up.
It's very interesting because I was raised by a single mom before my mom remarried, and they're celebrating their 25th wedding anniversary to my stepdad Luke this week. So shout out to Connie and Luke, love them. But as a boy, as growing up, my early years, my mom worked in sales. She did door-to-door sales. She sold industrial products to different factories. She was the only woman that would ever walk into these factories, put a hard hat on. She was a bold, and she still is a bold woman. Let me tell you something. My mom's a bold woman, and to think that that she's had to work against a system that just wouldn't listen it's heartbreaking. And I think, and I've been accused, through emails and people that support, and I appreciate people pushing back, but I've been accused of being cringeworthy, ultra woke, this and that. And it's like, look, take what Van had to say. We come from a world where we are told we're better than, whether it's as a man, whether it's as a white man, and it's important to just realize, look, a lot of people that follow The Bachelor, big Christian fan base, aren't we all created equal under God's eye? Isn't that the idea, that we're all created equal? So let's not pretend like anyone's better than anyone else. Some of us just started the race a little bit farther ahead. So it's very interesting for him to relate this back to the gender, because race, gender, there's always a connection with privilege and where we all start. But I think if we can all agree, we want our daughters, our wives, our moms, and just our friends, anyone around us to feel like they're an equal. I think that's a baseline that we can all agree with. The question is, how do we get there from our past? How do we get over the defensiveness of the people like Chris Harrison's? And I've been so defensive. Are you kidding me? I've struggled really hard with my career, wondering, when my ticket's going to be called, what, this and that, Jade, looking in different people's lanes. It's hard to stick in your own lane and just plow forward. So I totally empathize and understand with that. Very interesting thing that happened while they were doing this podcast. By the way, if this is going to relate very much to the next video that I have, which is the Justin Timberlake apology. So if you guys only stick around for the Bachelor content, I please encourage you to check out my next video, which is going to be the Justin Timberlake apology for a lot of different things that have gone on between Britney Spears, Janet Jackson, some interviews he's done with Diane Sawyer. It's going to be very interesting to hear what he has to say after an apology he made 2 years ago for some other infidelity issues. So anyway, check that video out after if you don't mind. But right now, I want to play a very interesting clip. As they were doing this podcast, there was the breaking news that Rachel Kirkconnell released her apology. So they read it for the first time on air and reacted to it. So I'm going to jump to the 32:25 mark here, and very fascinating stuff, 32:25. So let's play that for you guys there, and then we'll get out of here.
Has apologized. All right. Jackson, would you like to read her apology?
Sure. From Rachel Kirkconnell in a written statement on Instagram. Not on her Instagram story, mind you, Rach. Better than Hannah B.
That's improvement.
Improvement.
Which is, they're making fun of the fact that Hannah Brown, after 2 weeks of going radio silent, released a Instagram story, which of course then vanishes. So this is an improvement. We're one step at a time.
While there have been rumors circulating, there have also been truths that have come to light that I need to address. I hear you, and I'm here to say I was wrong. At one point, I didn't recognize how offensive and racist my actions were, but that doesn't excuse them. My age or when it happened does not excuse anything. They are not acceptable or okay in any sense. I was ignorant, but my ignorance was racist. I'm sorry to the communities and individuals that my actions harmed and offended. I'm ashamed about my lack of education, but it is no one's responsibility to educate me. I am learning and will continue to learn how to be anti-racist because it's important to speak up in the moment and not after you're called out. If you're a person who doesn't understand the offense in question, I urge you to learn from my mistakes and encourage you to use them as a teachable moment. As for my family, I love them and how they raised me to be my own individual. They've always encouraged me to have my own views, opinions, and beliefs. As I was thinking about what I wanted to say, I couldn't help but think about how sick people must be of reading these kinds of statements, how a person didn't realize the trauma that their actions would inflict on the other people. It must get so exhausting. I want to put my energy towards preventing people from making the same offensive mistakes that I made in the first place, and I hope I can prove this to you moving forward. Racial progress and unity are impossible without white accountability, and I deserve to be held accountable for my actions. I will never grow unless I recognize what I have done is wrong. I don't think one apology means that I deserve your forgiveness, but rather, I hope I can earn your forgiveness through my future actions. End of statement.
She put her statement, put Chris's to shame.
Wow.
She did a better job. What do you think about this?
Well, it's great that she apologized. It's great that she finally said something. I would like to remind everybody that an apology is a step, a baby step in the right direction, but it's just an apology. We got to see it. I'm holding you to what you said. It's great that you said it. It's great that you put that out there. I'm holding you to it. I'm going to be honest, though. The other side of me doesn't care. It took you 6 weeks to address something that's been festering. 6 weeks.
Do you think that she would have apologized at this particular time had it not been from the Chris Harrison thing that happened with you earlier this week?
So it has been rumored that she was going to apologize within this week. I actually totally forgot that I was told it was going to come out today. But then, because Chris happened, the Chris situation happened. She wasn't speaking, but her friends and family and other people were speaking for her, part of the problem, saying that the franchise was holding her back from apologizing.
God damn, man.
That's a lie. That's a lie. But check this out. Let's just say that's true. First of all, there is nothing in your contract that stops you from getting on your social media and doing exactly what she just did. She can't go to the media and do an exclusive sit-down interview on her own, but they don't have control over your social. So I have a huge issue with the franchise told you not to do it. You should be so outraged and enraged that people are speaking about you and calling you Rachel KKK. I've seen Confederate Rachel, all these different things that are out there in regards to you. And if those things aren't true, or if maybe there are some truths, as you said in your apology, then you should speak out. You should have put this statement out sooner. So for me, it's kind of like, okay, it's been 6 weeks, great. I'm so glad to finally see something. But at 6 weeks, I don't really care. This shit's been out here.
Okay, so this final clip that I'm going to play from this interview, which again, go check out the full interview. I'm just trying to share a few clips. I think you all should go check out this full interview. The final aspect is Van asks, is the Bachelor franchise racist? And Rachel also describes what she plans to do moving forward after her contract expires. So let's check out this last clip.
Because I think that's what's interesting about Chris Harrison, he said, I promise to do better. I need people to stop making these statements. What does that look like? What does doing better look like? How are you going to be better? That is what I want to know. You putting out a statement and disappearing for a few days, weeks, that ain't better. How is Chris Harrison going to be better? Can that please be the next tweet, the next post of you telling me what you did wrong? Because I need you to see it. And then how you're going to be better with that. As far as me, I'm fucking tired. I'm exhausted. I have truly had enough. My entire reason for doing The Bachelorette, and I was lucky that it worked out for me in the most beautiful way in finding Brian, is that I wanted to be representative as a Black woman to this audience. And I wanted to pave the way for more people to have this opportunity. In some ways, that has happened. I wanted the franchise to be better. I have a love-hate relationship with it. I'm connected to it. It did stuff for me, and I'll never forget that. But how much more do I want to be affiliated with this? How much more can I take of things like this? I already said I was going to leave if they didn't have leads of color. Okay, they did that, and they made some other changes. They hired a diversity consultant. Who didn't attend the class? Did Chris Harrison not sit through that? I'm confused as to how you could have a whole consultants working for you, yet what happens just happened. So are people going through training? Are they learning things? Or are they just being protected from what we just saw happen this week? I can't take it anymore. I'm contractually bound in some ways, but when it's up, I am too. I can't do it anymore.
Wow. Well, there you have it, folks. Go check out that full interview. I wanted to show you guys a few other tabs while I have your attention here, as just a few examples of how Chris Harrison sort of, like the whole question is what were his intentions during the interview, and I can't speak for him. I can't speak for anybody else, but what I can say is there's so much misinformation. There were so many PR campaigns to make the Confederate flag seem like it was just Southern pride, to make people think that the Civil War was about state rights and not slavery. There's so much to unpack in our country that we need to do better with media literacy. We need to do better with how we digest content. So just very quickly, Chris Harrison had mentioned the idea that, monuments are being destructed and the history is being washed away. And this is just a dead center NPR article called "Confederate Statues Were Built to Further a White Supremacist Future." These statues were erected, a lot of them, during civil rights movements. Here's a graph. I'll show you another one. This is the early 1900s. This is a spike of when these Civil War statues came up. And it's very funny to me, this quote. These statues were meant to create legitimate garb for white supremacy. Why would you put a statue of Robert E. Lee or Stonewall Jackson in 1948 in Baltimore? And these are great questions. So I just ask people, if you have family that consumes media that's very biased, if you yourself do, just Google media bias chart, and you'll see that if something's not in this neutral area right here, it's not fact. See, the top, it says original fact reporting is up here, and the farther down you go, it contains inaccurate, fabricated info and propaganda. You'll see it on the right with InfoWars, the left with Patriobotics. It's on both sides. So you get analysis, discussion, Fox News, even CNN. There's news there, but there's also selective and incomplete stories. So get your chunk of news up here, original fact reporting. Okay, guys? Here's another chart which I thought looked good as far as monuments and statues. And I understand Chris Harrison was talking about Lincoln and Washington, but when people think of just ripping down statues, we think of it, they think of it as the woke police. Every issue needs to be met specifically and very, not generally, get into that issue. So if a statue is being torn down, look at why it was created. Was it created in the 1940s because the KKK was on a rise, or was it created in the 60s because of a civil rights era and it was meant to intimidate? It's very important to look at these things. And people, a lot of people say, with the All Lives Matter crowd, that hey, everyone's got a rights. Everyone, you don't like it, vote them out. This is 8 ways that black people were kept from voting. violence, literacy tests, property tests, grandfather clause. You could only vote if your grandfather voted, but your grandfather lived in a time when black people couldn't own property and only people who had property could vote. These things happened all the time, and they still exist through other types of voter suppression. Purges, former prisons. You can't vote if you were in prison, except in Florida, I believe they just changed the law. If you're a felon, you can't vote. Well, what constitutes a felon? Were you selling marijuana that now people, now it's legal to sell in different states? Very complex issues, but it's important to dig deep into the different ways that people are being silenced. Very important to dig deep. So yeah, all these different issues, it makes you wonder like how hard it is to get ahead of having your message be heard out there, seeking equality. You could, talk all day about this, but just as a start, media literacy, understanding bias and understanding that we all have flawed opinions that were informed by our youth, how we were raised. And while Chris Harrison might have had good intentions, what I would love from the Bachelor Nation crowd is to sit down and just dissect it. Get some historians, get some people like Chris Harrison and Rachel Lindsay, get some other contestants, get them to have these conversations so it's not just you're wrong, fire you, and I understand that consequences, there needs to be consequences to people's actions, but also we need to untangle the Christmas lights here, folks, if we're going to hang them back up again. We need to untangle all of these misinformations and issues. So anyway, I'll finish you with this tweet that I banged out today. People who hate the woke police but also don't want the removal of Confederate monuments. Confederate statues are participation trophies for racists. They lost but still got the hardware. Let me know what you guys think. Leave a comment. Join me on the next video where I discuss Justin Timberlake's apology and how much it does not compare to Rachel Kirkconnell's. Anyway, thank you guys so much and have a good weekend. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.